The day I inherited my grandfather's 150-year-old ranch was supposed to be peaceful, a moment filled with memories of his legacy and the pride of carrying on something that had stood strong for generations. The sprawling land stretched across green meadows. Old oak trees guarded the fences, and the farmhouse itself looked as if time had touched it with both grace and hardship. But that tranquility shattered the moment a black SUV came barreling up the dusty driveway, kicking up gravel like it owned the place. Out stepped a woman dressed head to toe in a stiff business suit, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched on her nose like a general preparing for battle. Without so much as a greeting, she marched straight past the porch where I was sitting and announced herself with a voice sharp enough to cut steel. "I'm Karen, president of the Homeowners Association. You can't just live here without approval. There are rules, and you'll need to follow them." I blinked in disbelief. This wasn't a suburban neighborhood with manicured lawns and cookie-cutter houses. This was my grandfather's land, a ranch that had stood long before any HOA even existed in the nearby development. Yet she spoke as though she owned it. Karen flipped open her clipboard and began rattling off violations before she even looked around. "Your fence is 6 inches too high. The barn roof is non-compliant, and livestock are restricted within 2 miles of our community. You'll be fined immediately unless you remove them." I stood up slowly, resisting the urge to laugh. "Ma'am, this is private property. This land has been in my family since before your subdivision even broke ground. You don't have authority here." Her lips curled into a smirk, as though she'd dealt with defiance before and crushed it. Everyone thinks that until they see the legal paperwork. The HOA extends jurisdiction to within 3 miles of our gates. And trust me, I've never lost a case. I watched her parade across the yard, snapping photos of everything. The old water tower, the horses grazing peacefully, even the hand-carved sign that bore my family's name. My blood boiled, but I stayed calm. She had no idea who she was dealing with. As she scribbled violations in her notepad, she barked, "You'll receive official notices soon. Don't test us. The HOA always wins." She stormed back to her SUV, slamming the door so hard it echoed across the field, then peeled out of the driveway like a conqueror leaving battle. What she didn't realize was that she had just picked a fight not with some helpless ranch owner, but with the sitting governor of the state, me. That night, I sat in my grandfather's study, surrounded by old books and family photographs, thinking about how he would have laughed at the absurdity. Karen thought she was untouchable, that her HOA rules outweighed common sense, history, and state law. But I knew better. I'd spent years fighting bigger battles in the legislature, standing up to corporations and lobbyists who thought money could bend the law. An HOA president with a clipboard was nothing compared to that. 2 days later, Karen returned, this time with backup. 3 HOA board members trailed behind her, each with their own clipboards, ready to measure, inspect, and intimidate. She strutted up the porch like she owned it. "Governor or not, no one is above HOA regulations," she declared smugly. I motioned for her to sit, but she refused, standing tall like she was about to issue a warrant. That was her mistake. I pulled out a folder from my leather briefcase, the same briefcase I carried into state meetings, and placed it on the table. Inside was every zoning map, land deed, and state law relevant to this ranch. My voice was steady, but every word landed like a hammer. "This ranch is classified as agricultural land under state law. Your HOA has no jurisdiction here. In fact, your attempt to extend power over this property is not only baseless, but could be considered harassment. If you continue, I'll have no choice but to investigate your HOA practices at the state level." The smugness drained from Karen's face. Her board members exchanged nervous glances. She sputtered, trying to recover. You can't just threaten us like that. We have power." I leaned in, lowering my voice so that every syllable carried weight. "You're looking at the governor of this state. The only power you have here is the power I allow you to keep. And right now, you're testing my patience." Karen's jaw dropped. For once, her words failed her. She shuffled her papers, her hands trembling. The board members slowly backed toward their SUV, clearly realizing they'd walked into the wrong fight. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply stood, pointing toward the road. Leave. Now. And if I hear another peep about HOA jurisdiction over this land, I'll personally make sure your board is audited, your overreach is corrected, and your position is reconsidered by people with real authority. Karen's face turned red as a chili pepper, but she said nothing. She climbed into her SUV, slammed the door, and drove off in silence. No threats, no clipboard notes, just the crushing realization that she had picked a fight with the one man she couldn't bully. As I watched the dust settle over the driveway, I thought of my grandfather again. He used to say the ranch would always need a strong protector. And that day, I finally understood. This land wasn't just soil and wood. It was legacy. It was history. And no HOA Karen was ever going to take that away.